I think we're in a weird place in society where the term drug is a blanket and it covers things that have vastly different effects. It covers caffeine, it covers nicotine, and it covers dimethyltryptamine, which is crazy. It's crazy that all those things are drugs. Adderall's a drug. Benzodiazepine is a drug. Xanax, there's a million of them. They're all different, and they're all drugs. And the idea that psychedelics are a drug, for lack of a better term, that's what we use. I don't think that's what they are at all. I think they are probably why we became people. I think they are probably why society advanced. And I think every great ancient culture probably celebrated them and used them. It seems like there's so much evidence out of Egypt of the use of psilocybin, various different drugs, various different psychedelic experiences. The iconography of the pineal gland seems to be a big part of multiple cultures, not just Egyptian, but even Catholicism. If you go to the Vatican, there's this enormous pine cone that is a statue there. And I was very lucky when I went to the Vatican. We got a guide. We hired a private guide that was a scholar from France. And when he's not working in the summers, he gives these tours, and they're very thorough. And he was a brilliant guy. I wish I could remember his name. I should probably find it out to give him credit. Brilliant guy. So he takes us through, showing us all this artwork. It's incredible, explaining why they had little penises, and that it was explaining the whole thing, that big penises were thought to be barbaric, and it was not representative of like somewhat of class and dignity and education. And so we get to this pine cone, and he says to me, he goes, "Do you know what this represents?" And I said, "Is it the pineal gland?" And he goes, "Yes." And then we start this conversation of why these Catholics would have this enormous representation of the pineal gland, which they reference as the seat of the soul, and that this gland, which is in the center of your brain, is thought to be literally a third eye. And on reptiles, it actually has a cornea and a lens, this gland. Like literally, it's exactly where the third eye of Eastern mysticism is. And they've got a representation of it right here. And it's thought to be where dimethyltryptamine is produced. And this whole connection to it is so old. It seems like you go back to the John Marco Allegro stuff, you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the oldest version of the Bible, the only version that I believe the only version they have in Aramaic of all those stories. And if he's right, if John Marco Allegro is right, it all kind of makes sense. That these people were having these experiences much like the Greeks were with the Eleusinian mysteries, much like multiple different cultures in the Amazon, all over the world have experienced these profound ceremony experiences that lead to these journeys into the spirit world, these connections with higher consciousness, this something that when you're experiencing it seems very, very real, but also very preposterous when you try to explain it to people that aren't experienced. You know, it's like Hendrix. Like, are you experienced? Have you ever been experienced? Well, I have. Like, it's that. Like, understanding that that's possible, the world changes. Because now you know that that's possible. You could live your whole life and not know that the most shocking, profound thing in existence is 3 hits away. 3 hits away. And all of a sudden, you're in a completely different universe in 20, 30 seconds. That's nuts. And the fact that that is dismissed, that people look at it as like, oh, you're just escaping reality, and you're like, it might be the source of civilization itself. It might be the source of language. It might be the source of the expansion of the human mind over a period of 2 million years, the doubling of the human brain over a period of 2 million years, which Terence McKenna felt directly coincides with the shifting of the tropical rainforest turning into grasslands, which would force these primates to experiment with new food sources, and these ungulate cows that were everywhere that would shit, and then these psilocybin mushrooms would grow in their shit. Observed primates flipping over these cow patties, looking for beetles and grubs and things to eat. It's everywhere. Like, you can see it all over Africa. If there's something on that, they're going to try it out. And if these things are trying it out and they're doing this over a period of 2 million years, and they develop language and culture and weapons, and they start thinking about things, and they become different than every animal around them. And this was McKenna's stoned ape theory, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And Dennis McKenna, who is, a legitimate scientist, Dennis explains it even better, because he explains it with the actual mechanisms that your brain, the things that fire up when you encounter high-dose psilocybin experiences that would lead you to the development of language. Glossolalia, the connection of sounds and objects and bringing things together in a manner of communication. Also, they realized that in low doses, it increases visual acuity. It makes people more amorous, makes people hornier. They're going to have more sex. They're going to be better hunters because they could see better. They're going to be a little more sensitive to the environment. They're going to be more aware. Edge detection's different. There's like so many different things that happen that if you're thinking about what made people, it's a mystery. We want to pretend that we understand things because of the fossil record and this and that. Sure, we kind of understand, but every now and then we find a new human that we didn't even know exists, like Denisovans. What was that? Not even 20 years ago, I don't think? So now there's a whole other branch of human beings that they weren't even aware of 20 years ago. Whatever the fuck happened that took us from all the other primates that are still here and made us this, it's pretty profound. And I have a feeling that psychedelics were at least involved in that process. And my belief is that the Sweeping Psychedelics Act of 1970 that they passed essentially to target civil rights activists and anti-war activists. That's what they did. They wanted to go after the hippies. And they went after the hippies with MK Ultra, with Tom O'Neill so brilliantly outlines in his book Chaos. They went after it and they created the Manson family. They created that family. They taught that guy how to do that so that guy would kill people and he would be a psychopath, and now hippies would be psychopaths. And then all this anti-war shit would just get stopped by sensible people. Then Schedule I, everything. Psilocybin, marijuana, all down the board. Everything becomes Schedule I, the most illegal of illegal things. So all these people who are all these Ken Kesey people and, all the LSD people of the 60s, all those people become criminals instantly. And they just threw water on the whole movement. And it worked. It really worked. It was Nixon and all the people that were in charge back then. If you look at what happened from 1960 to 1980, this confusing era of the 70s where the effects are wearing off, and then you get into the 80s and everybody's doing coke and they have makeup on and they have big hair and the music sucks. It's like something happened. And what happened was they completely removed the very thing that had changed culture so radically from the 50s to the 60s. Like, I'm a gigantic fan of 1960s automobiles. I love them. There's something about the shapes of them, the way they sound. I mean, part of it is that I grew up in the 80s, and those were the cars we all wanted. When we were kids, if a guy drove by in a 1969 Camaro, we would all be like, whoa, look at it. Look at that thing. But there's something about those shapes. There's something about the designs of those cars that resonates so strongly today. A 1990 car ain't worth shit. Nobody wants your fucking 1990 car. 1990 Camaro, get the fuck out of here with that thing. But if you have a 1968 Camaro, people will stop in a parking lot and stare at it. What is that? I think those guys were on drugs. I think all those guys were on drugs. I think the guy who created a Corvette had to be on drugs. These guys were, they felt something the same way Hendrix felt something when he was on stage playing guitar in a way nobody had ever heard before. That guy came out of nowhere, and everybody was like, what the fuck is he doing? It was so different that Eric Clapton watched him for the first time and was like, I should probably quit playing guitar. Like, what the fuck am I doing compared to this guy? Like, Jesus Christ, everybody was like humbled and confused by it. Psychedelic inspired, 100%. 100%. And there's something about throwing water on that in the 1970s that I think has done a massive disservice to our civilization, a massive disservice, because it's equated these things with people that have poor discipline and bad social skills and ne'er-do-wells who fail in society, and that's not true.
So,
And all these people that I know that are billionaires, I know people that are like super rich people that run these financial institutions. And I know a lot of like brilliant venture capitalist guys and brilliant tech guys. And almost all of them are enthusiasts. Almost all of them have had these experiences, and they're all kind of quiet about it. And it's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate because of these stupid laws that were passed 50 years ago. We've gotten ourselves in this weird crunch where we've made things illegal that could massively help people progress in life and sort things out if we could figure out how to manage them correctly, if we could run proper studies about what is the correct dose. Is there a person that has a certain sort of biological makeup that makes these drugs problematic? Should we find out maybe someone's allergic to them? There's many medications and many different compounds and many plants and natural things that people are allergic to. Let's avoid that. Let's try to figure out what works for some people, what doesn't work. Let's have legitimate counselors that could guide people through experiences, people that have experienced it themselves and can understand how to do this with intent and possibly aid your life. They have been shown to be hugely beneficial for soldiers, for our military men and women coming back from overseas experiencing horrific trauma, to help them get past that. And yet they're illegal still. And we're both middle-aged men, right? So who is telling us what we can and can't do? This is preposterous. This is other men our age that haven't had these experiences maintaining this control on them in a completely ignorant way. They don't even know what they are. They don't know what these things are. They don't know what the experience is, and yet they want it to be kept out of the hands of kids. We got to keep it off the streets. We've got to keep drugs away from our society. And you don't know what you're talking about. It might be why we're here, and it also, the absence of it, might be why we're so fucked up. It might be why we're so disconnected, why we're so disjointed, and our society is so hypocritical. I mean, the most pro-life people are also pro-death penalty. It's like across the board, everything. The people that, want no crime but don't want to stop the emergence of crime by funding programs to try to fix the inner cities, and they want to. Our whole thing is disconnected. And I have a feeling that a big part of that is that we have not been given access to tools that have helped people literally become what we are today. And if they're if you read Brian Murarescu's work, and if he's correct, and these people that are studying the Eleusinian mysteries and the literal emergence of democracy as we know it, probably all of it came out of psychedelic experiences.